Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Come on in again. It's that time of the day and everything that we get started where we're going to fire you up. We're going to let you get inspired, motivated. We're going to provide some hope to let you know that you can get through this difficulty, this struggle, this challenge, this adversity, make it through the other end. Realize that the light at the end of the tunnel is not a freight train coming, and that all good things are going to happen no matter the situation. Hang in there, look for that silver lining, and sometimes remember, we have to walk through fertilizer to get to that rose. All right, so let's just hang in there. Help other people and go from there. Hey, welcome to the Professor of Perseverance podcast. I'm Dr. James Purdue, the Professor of Perseverance himself. And so I want to welcome you in to our show where we talk about overcoming adversities from there. Today, our topic is depression. And our guest, is been through it. And I would imagine that all of us been through it, depending on how mild or how severe it gets. Okay, but I believe we all have experienced depression. Now, he is the author of the book. Let's get it up here. The Official Depression Relief Playbook, Real Life Strategies from a Guy Who Has Lived It. Welcome to the show today, Zack Rutledge.
Professor, thank you so much for having me. And by the way, you have the coolest studio around. I'm sure you get a lot of compliments on it.
Yes, we get a little bit there. Yeah, they jump in and holler about the Hulk back there and James Dean, and yeah, so we get every now and again someone talks about the background. So and it's the real deal too. It's none of the green screen and all that stuff. It's the real deal. So
very cool.
Yeah, well, those saying, one's purse trash is another person's treasure, and so it may not apply to everybody, but I'm sure what they got is great that maybe I wouldn't adjust to, but we all do what we think we need to do.
I love it.
Hey, Zack, thank you for coming in. Again, your book, we'll put it back up again for others watching. The Official Depression Relief Playbook. All right. For real life strategies from a guy who has lived it. And again, Zack, like I said, I believe most, if not all of us, sometime in our life is going to have some form, fashion of depression. Depending again how mild or how serious it gets, is where the problem lies. And so, Zack, if you want to go ahead and again, appreciate you being here, sharing your valuable time with the listeners and me, and helping us get some hope at the end of this. We appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again.
Just go ahead and hop in with your story.
Yeah, sure. So to give you some kind of context on maybe why you should be listening to me, where I am now is I'm an ACE certified personal trainer. I'm a fitness nutrition specialist. I have a black belt in karate. I'm a certified brain trainer through the Functional Aging Institute. I just became a yoga teacher, which is pretty cool. And I have a master's from American in DC, but I'm about to start a second master's program to become a licensed professional counselor, a therapist. So a lot going on. That gives you a little bit of context where I'm at right now. A little bit of my background, though, that pertains to why I wrote this book. I had like a quote unquote normal childhood, meaning no capital T traumas. And, stable. And I noticed a few things kind of popping up here and there throughout my teens, as in like with my insight now, I noticed I took breakups harder than most people. If I got a bad grade, I'll take it harder than most people. And I had a lot of anxiety. At the time, I just thought I was a moody musician. I didn't know really, I didn't have the insight, like I said, but it wasn't until I was 18, it was the summer after high school, where I hit what I call the perfect storm. So my best friend was killed. Um, and I was graduating high school, so all of my support system was gone there. My karate school shut down, so I lost that whole support system. I had been in that karate school since 10 years old, so it kind of felt like I was floating on my own there. And this is before high speed internet, before social media, all that stuff. So we didn't really keep in touch the way we do now. Um, and also, there tends to be this pattern where a lot of people in their late teens, early 20s tend to develop quirks, let's say. So things like depression, OCD, things like that tend to manifest around that age. So for me, it was some of it was situational, but a lot of it was chemical. Now that I can see that, and it just clobbered me, took the life out of me. I had to drop out of college, um, and really from there is where kind of this second chapter begins. Is kind of building myself back up brick by brick.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a lot of tragedy at the beginning with, again, you've been at this one school, karate school for years and years and years. It's shutting down. Your friend again passes away in, assuming in a traumatic fashion, wasn't expected.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
assuming. And so,
yeah.
yeah, that's a lot going on for a young person in life. So, hey, Nancy, I just sent you that text and everything because I told, um, where is it? Told Zach, you're a fellow Jersey, and you'd like to come on in and probably listen to this one with him. So, but yeah, that's a lot going on with someone young at that time in life and everything, and a lot of pressure. And like I said, you're already full of anxiety and stuff like that. So, all right. So now, what's going? How's everything else going, to help with all this? Mom and dad talking to you. They say you need to go seek counseling. Some other friends stepping up to be a replacement, maybe not a replacement, but trying to be there for you. I mean, what else is going on?
Well, that was, maybe part of it was actually there was nothing stepping in. It was very
Okay.
much a solo battle.
Yeah,
My friends were gone; they were starting their new lives, and there was nobody really left back in my town. And my parents. I was 18 years old. Last thing I wanted to do was talk to my mom about my issues.
that's right.
Uh, especially as a male, that just tends to be the way we are.
18 and a male. We know it all. We don't need mom and dad.
Knew it all. Knew it all.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah, got into some pretty toxic relationships. Uh, didn't work out too great, but um, I was lucky enough, like I said, um, or maybe I didn't say this. I'm a musician. Yeah, I did say that, and I was lucky enough to fall into a band a couple years later where they were getting me out of the place and they were getting me kind of playing these venues and they were getting me around some people where I had gone, a couple years without getting out of bed. I couldn't go back to school. And luckily these guys were really into like really healthy lifestyles and really into advancing careers, things like that. So just being around people like that was the first kind of little step. Um, and I feel like suffering with depression, which, like you said, there's a lot of us. A really important message I want to get through now is there is no silver bullet. What I was doing at that time was I was looking for the one thing that was going to get me over that hump. So I was feeling pretty bad about myself. I was getting out and playing some venues and stuff, but we ended up playing CBGB's, which is up in New York. It's not there anymore, but that was like a really big deal for me. That's considered the birthplace of punk rock. So for me, that was like a lifetime goal. Here I am, whatever I was, 21 years old, playing CBGBs, opening for these big bands. I felt, it should have been on top of the world. And I remember playing the show, getting out of the van, getting out of the venue, sitting in the van the rest of the night, just being in the dark, just crushed. And I just could not place my finger on why. Um, because there is a difference between grief and depression. Grief is a price we all have to pay for love. And for people who haven't suffered with depression, this sounds strange, but when I was crying for him, it felt cleaner. That's the best way I can put it. It felt cleaner than the depression. The depression wasn't necessarily a sadness, it was something different that was pulling me under from the inside. Um, so, anyway, uh, playing in the bands with these guys, it got me at least looking for some answers where before I kind of felt like I was getting sucked in. So I was like, well, I didn't have the insight at the time to really know it was internal. So I was like, well, it's because my best friend died. After a few years goes by, though, I had to start looking for another reason. So I was like, well, maybe
That's right.
it's because I didn't graduate college. So, and I was a little older at the time. I didn't graduate college till 26, which isn't old at all. But at the time, you think,
Oh yeah.
oh man, I feel like I'm 30 years older than all my friends who already graduated college. So I graduate. I'm on my way to graduate college, and I realized there's this thing called honors, where you can graduate with honors, with grades. And it was the first time I had done pretty well in school. And I was like, okay, well, maybe if I graduate with honors, then I'll feel like a whole person. No, that didn't do it. Okay, well, maybe if I become a personal trainer, then that'll be like an extra feather in my cap. I'll be a college graduate, but then I'll also be a personal trainer. Then I'll definitely feel great. That didn't do it either. So I was like, oh, okay, I got to turn that arrow around. And that was a key.
Somewhere in life is holding and dangling that carrot off the rod in front of you, and you're
Mhm.
trying to chase and grab whatever's there,
Yeah.
and going after the new shiny thing to make yourself feel good.
Yeah, and those shiny things weren't doing it. And it took me
Yeah.
years to figure that out. So, I mean, moving in the right direction was obviously a good thing. I was up and going to school, things like that. That's great. And getting around people, that's fantastic.
Well, it stays social, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that all played a role, right? But it wasn't an answer. And I had to turn that arrow around, like I said, but it's also there is no silver bullet. So it was kind of like that was about the time I realized, oh, I need to look inward and I got to build this back up brick by brick. I got to find those little things that are working for me now and start stacking them. And that was the beginning of the real growth. Um, so yeah, I was a personal trainer, but developing these relationships with these clients of these people who were really looking for answers and becoming a fitness nutrition specialist where I was meeting with people. Funny enough, with that, it tends to be a lot of talking. And we weren't talking about food. These people were coming to me with some real issues.
Oh yes,
Things,
the reasoning they've gone to food for their companion.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which was great for them to have them talking about it because a lot of them couldn't talk about it with their families or didn't feel like they could. And
Hmm.
it gave me insight on how I was treating myself, and I was listening to my own words, sending it back to them. So I ended up doing a lot more research on why maybe they felt crummy. So I started with food, and I thought, well, I know a lot of the time my just stomach wouldn't feel great because of whatever I ate. So first thing I recommended to people was, hey, maybe you should get an allergy test because um, some people aren't as in tune with their bodies, or sometimes things just make them feel a little off. I know if I have a glass of milk, it's not going to end well. But some people, it's just going to provide a little bit of inflammation. There is a theory out there that depression is actually um, a result of inflammation in the brain. I think that's part of it. I don't think it's all of it. I think it's part of it. So anyway, I tell people to get these allergy tests because everyone is a little different. When we're talking about your diet, it sounds like a lazy answer, but it's true. Everyone processes foods a little differently. Like I can have wheat all day. My fiance, she would have a big problem having wheat. So we are all a little different. Another thing, which sounds strange, but is true, a lot of experts now are saying, are providing, I'm sorry, prescribing probiotics for depression. Uh, Again, goes into your gut, right? And we're like, okay, well, what does that matter? We actually create 95% of our serotonin in our gut, not in our brain. So we need to get our gut in order, right? So, great thing to do, start getting rid of the soda, start getting rid of the chips, maybe start drinking more water. If you don't like water, add some lemon and mint, see how that works for you, and just start dialing it in. You don't have to do it all at once. Just start dialing that in a little bit. And of course, I'll take people depending on where they're at, because everybody's in a different place depending on what their trigger foods are. Um, so that was one thing I did there. Sorry, man, I'm a talker and I could go all day. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and interrupt me.
You're doing well. Then yeah, I would jump in, and like I said, that we're all different and everything like this, and that the way we digest our food, what we take in, intake. And I'm like you, it's better to dabble in to start a new program than I think better than jump full force. Because you
Yeah.
jump full force and you make that change so fast, and now your body's going to neglect, it's going into withdrawals, it's going through all this other stuff. But if you dabble in and add a piece at a time as
Yes.
you make adjustments, I think it's easier on you and the body and physically and emotionally and everything.
You couldn't be more right. The all-in approach, unfortunately, just doesn't work. It's too much on us psychologically. It's too much on us physically, even because you take somebody who's used to eating really low fiber foods, give them a salad, it's not going to work well. They're not used to it. Your body has to adapt. So anyway, it's one piece of our puzzle is our digestive system. Another piece of the puzzle, of course, we have to get our mind in the right direction, I guess. And I do give a list of some things that I read in the back of my book, but we've got to start cutting out the things that are kind of poisoning the well, so to speak. So back when I had first hit my deep depression, um, I had pretty bad. I wasn't able to concentrate or focus on anything that well. So I said to myself one day, I've really got to start focusing on something because I'm all over the place and I'm accomplishing nothing. So I thought, okay, what's a half hour that I could focus on? I was like, oh, TV. And then I made the worst possible decision ever. I decided to start watching the news. but at the
Oh yes,
time,
oh yes, oh yes, yes, yes.
but at the time I thought, okay, well, smart people watch the news, informed people watch the news. This is only going to help me. I quickly realized I don't need to know about every murder in the tri-state area. It was
Exactly.
it was poisoning that well. So, what can I do to kind of clean the room, I guess, clean that room in my head. So I made the leap. Sounds a little funnier these days, but back years ago, there was a little bit more of a stigma. I went to the self-help section in the bookstore. Um, and I was embarrassed. I was sweating. I didn't want to be seen.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I was like, well, you know what? What better could I be reading? What better is there to read? So I picked up some books on, it, it- there's a saying, I don't know if you know Jim Rohn. If you want to be wealthy, study wealth. If you want to be healthy, study health. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to study happiness and I'm going to
That's right.
study these things. And eventually, 2 hours into my night, I'm feeding these things. I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit better. I would do that every single night. That was another little step, right? I was feeding that courage wolf. Uh,
Well, see, and it's no different than going to college. What are you studying to be in college? And
mm,
most of your courses is what you want to be, what
yeah.
you want to know. And so, like Jim Rohn says, if you want to be wealthy, you study wealth.
Mm,
So same thing. And wouldn't it Zig Ziglar talked about
yeah.
the university in the car, the car university, where
Yeah.
people are listening on back then cassette tapes and
Yeah.
listening to book audios or whatnot, and basically you get your degree from being in the car so much you're driving back and forth to work.
And it's not all of it is going to be for everyone, but you will find something. And everyone I know who has gotten into those audios, however they're listening to it, or the books, every single person without exception says, "Man, I wish I had done this earlier." It's great. It just opens up this whole new arena in your mind of possibilities. So that's another thing
This
I like
this
to
would
suggest.
be a huge benefit for someone that's illiterate.
Mm,
Nowadays for them, if they truly want to help themselves, start off with listening to books so
yes.
you can get some education and knowledge,
Love
and you
that.
and still work on learning to read it because that'd be even better for you. But at
Yeah.
least that would be a great first step with today's technology and way you can get your books and everything. Whether it's on your phone, the computer, whatever it is, and you can get all this information now.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Um, Another thing I did to make sure I kind of stayed on track is, and I still do this to this day. Again, sounds silly, but this really helped me at the time when I had really trouble just functioning in regular life mentally. Um, I made a sheet of what are these positive habits that I kind of want to do every day and maybe will forget. So I just started with, well, I'm going to drink a tall glass of water every morning. So that's still to this day on the top of my list. Now, I know I'm going to drink the water every morning, right? That's an easy one to get through. I brush my teeth, I go drink a tall glass of water. However, having it on my sheet and crossing it off, that's my first win. Mentally, that sets me going, I'm in the right direction. Great. What's next on my list? I have breakfast. I always have a healthy breakfast. And then I have the supplements I want to take. So here in the Northeast, we tend to have low vitamin D. So I have my low vitamin D. Oh, again, correlation, not necessarily causation, but there's a correlation between low vitamin D and depression. Always helps to get your blood work done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I got that on there. Cross them out, and then I go through the list. Now I don't have to go through the list in order, but anytime I feel like my mood starts to go in the wrong direction, or I feel like my mind starts to go in the wrong direction, I view it like a pilot. When a pilot starts to run into trouble when they're flying, they don't say, "Oh, what should I
Checklist.
do?" Yeah, exactly. They go to their checklist, and it gets them in the right direction. So that's what I do still to this day. And I actually am at the point now where I photocopy this thing because I'm tired of writing it out every day.
Well,
I
and
pull,
and and
yeah,
I understand what you're talking about on this list and everything. On the long-term goals that you would set, that I set, I advise people not just mark it off
mm,
the list that you finally achieve something. I
mm,
tell them I like putting the date that I actually achieved it. But at the very beginning, I like to put the date when I assigned this goal, and
nice.
then I want to get an ending date. I want to
That's
know
great.
how fast or how long it took me to achieve it. And then when you see a list being marked off and going down, you see the accomplishments. Then, like you said, you're getting these wins, and,
Yeah.
and you're psychologically getting these wins and seeing I am accomplishing things to get done.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. What I have is I have my daily on one side and my long terms on the other. But these are personal to you. Make them work for you. My most fun one is I have a juggle one. I try to juggle every day because I'm a brain trainer and juggling is really good for your brain. So I have a juggle on my list. I try to juggle. I cross it off. I feel a little bit better. Right, it gets me in that right direction. Um, it's just one of these tricks I kind of developed. And what happened was I started stacking that. And when you stack these things like this micro goals and feeding your mind the right materials, and I have a bunch of these things. Once I started stacking them, I started to find real results. Now, dialing in the diet and even meditation, I talk about that a little bit in the book. I stacked quite a few things. Um, I should note though that my very last stack, so to speak, only came about 5 years ago. I did start taking medication. So I got to and I know that's controversial, but I'd like to share my story at the very least. So I was doing everything on my checklist, and I was still feeling pretty good because I felt like I kind of climbed this mountain. And around 8 p.m. at night, I would notice that everything went sour. No matter how much I ate, no matter what I did that day, I could be at a concert that night. 8 p.m., things would go south. So I talked to my primary care doctor, believe it or not, and she said, it could be, just naturally your testosterone drops later at night. It could be a few different things. Everyone's a little different, of course, in body chemistry. And she recommended that I start taking. Uh, it's called an SNRI. Okay, so an SNRI is like an SSRI, which is more popular, but the SNRI helped me more because I actually have a chronic injury in my neck. I have this bone spur and I have this chronic pain. And she said the SNRI would help. So that was kind of like the thing that sold me because I'd been going through this chronic pain for a very long time. I started taking it. Now, I know plenty of people who start taking some kind of antidepressant or anti-anxiety, and then I ask them about it, and they say, "Oh, I came off of it. I didn't like the way it made me feel." And I say, "Well, how long were you on it?" "Oh, well, 3 days."
Yeah,
Eh,
yeah.
4 days. Well, here's the thing. With my experience, you got to give your body time to adjust. The first week for me, I was taking it at noon, and I was getting really, really tired. That's the way it affected me. And I noticed some other things as well. So I was like, okay, I'll start taking it at night. Moved that around, and then I noticed the following week the side effects were a little less. The following week, side effects a little less. And it was like, it took a while to taper off. Um, and it wasn't unbearable, but it took time. These are things I noticed. The weirdest one, funny enough, was kind of like I had this weird feeling like I had to yawn. It was this weird, I don't even know how to put it
Uh-huh.
into words. Strange one, right? And that was the last one to go away. And that was a couple months afterwards. So if you do decide to take this route, which I'm really glad I did because I know I had done everything else that I could possibly do. And then I added this as like the icing on the cake. If you are thinking of doing this, just give your body the chance to adjust and see if it works for you before you make any rash decisions, because it's not necessarily the way you'll feel 6 months later or 3 months later. It affects you a little differently.
And also consult your physicians. So, all
Oh,
right.
of course,
Yes.
yeah. But
Hey, now we got a question here. We got Nancy. Nancy again. She wants to know because she's from Jersey and wants to know what part of Jersey you're from.
okay, so I'm from Central Jersey. I actually live in Belmar now. There's two Belmars. I live at the one by the beach, but I'm from in the center. I'm from outside of Trenton, which is the capital.
And when you were talking about the vitamin D deficiency from up in that area, she said that she had been through that just as well where she was from at that
Yeah,
time. So,
yeah. Did she
and
say where she's from?
no, I don't know. I don't know what part of Jersey. I just know she's from there. So, Nancy, if you want to put what part you're from, then I'll relay it
We're
to.
not a big state.
Uh, so, and she, I mean, like everyone else, she says she went through her share of depression in her 20s, and she seek counseling as well.
Good.
So now the also with the depression and the medication you're talking about, like some people just don't give it enough time to make sure it's working, or
Yeah.
they'll take. I just don't notice any different, or it
Yeah.
didn't, or again, I don't like the feeling. Yeah, but again, what do they say? It takes like 18 days to get a new habit. To
Yeah.
break an old one and get a new one. So, I mean, if you're doing it 3 or 4 days, not even the 18, you
Yeah.
just, like you said, you're not giving enough time for everything to work and your body to adjust.
And your body is smart. It will adjust. Your body's a miracle. Um, yeah. So that's just my big ask for people, and don't be so afraid of it. I thought back, years ago, people were saying, "Oh, once you go on this medication, you can never stop," which actually isn't true. It's going to make you, go crazy in these different ways. It's not true. So and the drugs are a little different now. So it's
I like what you're talking about at the beginning. Let's again, everybody seek your own physicians and everything like that.
mhm,
But I would think if you change some of your nutritional values, uh, again, not to say fast foods is the worst thing in the world, but maybe not 12 times in one week, from it.
exactly.
Um, but again, to balance everything, and your body just wants to react with all that. Whatever it's taking in, it's going to react with what's there.
Yeah, that's the low hanging fruit, so to speak. That's always where I start. Is I get people honestly off of soda.
That
Like
exactly, yes.
I knew
And
a woman who every single night she would bring a 2-liter bottle up to bed, and by the morning it was finished. She would drink it throughout the night. So even in the middle of the night, she was drinking, Coke or whatever she was
yeah,
drinking.
yeah, yeah.
No good, no good. Your body does not want that. Um,
Yeah, my brother, he's definitely a cokeaholic.
yeah, yeah, and that's what it's designed for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's better to obviously stay away from that stuff. But I like what Nancy was saying. As far as therapy, of course, I'm a big fan because I'm about to become a therapist. But I should note this too. When I was first going through my hardest points, I started going to a therapist, or I went to a therapist once, and I thought, okay, it's not for me because I went once.
That's right.
Just like the drugs, or just like anything, you got to give it time. And maybe you've got to find what works for you. Maybe you don't like asparagus, but you like broccoli. Maybe you like them cooked this way, but you don't like them cooked this way.
I don't
So
I don't mind. I'm going to just interrupt you here. Boy, I can eat a good steamed or boiled broccoli
yeah,
as long as it's smothered with melted cheese.
and that's fine.
I'm sure that's defeating the purpose somewhere, but at least I'm
No.
getting it in. At least I'm getting it in there. So
so So yeah, so when you're looking for a therapist, it it's a relationship. You're building a relationship, and just because this one woman didn't work for me, it didn't mean all therapists didn't work for me. So it took me a couple years to finally go back to another one. He moved away. I got changed to his assistant, who was very clinical, didn't fit in my world where I'm very informal, and I stopped seeing her. And it wasn't until finally it was a professor in college who he was great. He was a psychology professor. He had a private practice, and I said, I want to see this guy. So and that again opened up my world in all new ways, opened up my mind in all new ways, had me seeing things in all new ways, and it was another building block to get me out of that depression. Like I said earlier, it's not there's no silver bullet. You can't assume one of these things is going to make all the difference in the world. It's the combination. Somehow there's this magical compound effect. When you start adding all these things together, that's when you're going to start seeing real change.
There you go. And today, again, we're speaking with Zack Rutledge, author of The Official Depression Relief Playbook, Real Life Strategies from a Guy Who Has Lived It. And again, thank you for being here. Hey, a question was brought up again with Nancy. Again, Nancy, thank you for being here. She wanted to know, is any time during your depression, did you ever think about the saddest one of all, ending it all?
Yeah, of course. Well, I shouldn't say of course, but yeah, I did. It was that serious. Yeah, it was about as low as you could get. Um,
Now, Now, Zack, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the one reason I wanted to start this podcast is, and it's amazing how technology developed and changed over years. Because
mm,
about 12 years ago, I wanted out of this world so bad I attempted suicide 3 times in 3 days.
mm,
That's how bad I wanted out. And the last time they found me laying in my van, I'm a spinal cord injury, can't move my legs. So I got out of my wheelchair and laid on the van floor, sucking carbon monoxide in my van in the garage.
mm.
And someone found me not breathing. They got the paramedics there, got me breathing again, got me into that depression chamber thing. I can't think of the name of it now. And where they force the carbon monoxide
Oh,
out and
right.
the
Decompression
oxygen
chamber. Yeah.
into my body and everything. Was in the hospital for 7 weeks and had to see a psychologist for a year. You live through them; they make you see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And he's the one that would advise me. He says, you got to you live. There's God still has something for you to do for him not to take you. And he said, you got a story to tell. You can help people. And he's the one that advised me to get into speaking, writing my memoir, other books. And eventually, over time, with technology, the YouTube channel started, and now podcast. And
Mm.
so, so I can honestly say I'm glad that the final straw didn't take up with the camel at that time, didn't
Yeah.
break the camel's back.
And at that time, I am certain at that time, you wouldn't have believed it. You wouldn't have believed that you were doing this stuff at the
Oh
time
no, no!
at your
At that
lowest.
time, I felt hope was gone, and that's one reason why I started is so we can provide hope for the people out there to realize hang in there long enough and persevere through it long enough, and you're going to realize, as my friend Bird Baggett would say, don't give up before the blessings.
I love that, and it's 100% true. 100% true. If anybody is in that deep of a situation right now, um, of course, it's so important that they reach out. So important that they reach out
Oh
because
yes, please, yeah. If anybody's listening, find the suicide hotline,
yeah.
find some type of counseling, go to your minister, your preacher, go to somebody that you can trust and listen to you and help you get through all this. And again, you don't have to go through it alone.
No,
So
no,
again,
and
that was one thing with me being, like you said earlier, being a man. I wanted to hang on to all this because I didn't want my family to worry about me and everything else. But
yeah,
they all saw through it. They knew
mm,
something was up.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting what we put ourselves through, right? We
Yeah,
would
yeah,
never
yeah. And unintentionally, we're dragging our loved ones with us.
unintentionally, we would never treat other people the way we treat ourselves.
That's
Uh,
right.
it's so interesting the way that works. Yeah, I wrote a brief thing about this in the book about back in some of my darkest points. I saw this thing on TV where it was the suicide rates off of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they actually have like a phone there, like an outreach phone on the bridge, and
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that somebody had written on the phone, "Life is beautiful," which did not sit well with me because it made me feel like, wow, well, I don't think life is beautiful. What's wrong with me? What I want people to say, what I wish it said was, life can be beautiful. Life can be better. Don't lose the hope. It can be better than this because and I'll probably talk about this a little later. People said a lot of dumb things to me, and the one that really got to me was, "Oh, it could be worse." And I'm like, "Man, I'm already at my bottom. You're telling me it could be worse." Now, of course, they're trying to say practice gratitude, but what I would wish they had said was, "It can be better. There's plenty of open real estate out there. You can make this better. Just reach
Yes.
out, get a little bit of help, and just start stacking those little victories, and things can be better." Absolutely.
Here's the one thing I heard during mine, and people again recognize I was a school teacher at that time, or a basketball coach for a girls' team and everything, but people would recognize it, and they would say, "Well, you just need to get over it." Wait a
Oh,
minute, you just can't get over it if you
no.
and see. I would used to think the same thing. I said the same thing to someone else. I said, "Man, you just got to get over and move on." No, until you experience it, it's not just getting over it.
Yes.
It's finding a way to get over it
Yes.
and get through it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and
But
I understand people were saying things in a loving way, in a concerned way, but sometimes people just need to be quiet and just listen.
I'm with you there. I am with you there. Yeah.
All right. She said, I'm not from Trenton, but from a little town, Del Delago, not far from Delran.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There, she's on the screen there if you want to read it.
Delanco. All
Delanco, there we
right.
go.
I know where that is. Okay, very cool. Yeah. She's not far from Trenton.
So there you go. All right, Nancy. So we'll get from getting a New Jersey connection here. So all right. So, Zach, again, appreciate you doing this again and sharing with us. So now, again, seeking your counseling, changing the nutrition, getting your mindset changed, and saying all this helped you along the way. And I really believe also staying active, whether you liked it or not at the time, being in school and going after all these other certifications was
Mhm.
good for you. It may seem like a little shiny new thing, but then just going through it and knowing you're winning it
Yes,
was beneficial at the time as well. It may not have seemed
absolutely.
it as you go through it or once you got that shiny dime and then you go, all right, what's next? But it still boosts that ego knowing you're still going.
Absolutely. And it wasn't everything, but it was something. It's something to be on the right path and working towards a big goal. And all of us have bigger goals, even if it's just to clean out that stupid garage, right? We all have these bigger goals that can seem impossible and they feel great when we're done. So, yeah, that's definitely a part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, a friend of mine. Well, a friend of mine was on. We met on podcast here, and we've talked a few times. His name is Max, and he told his story, and then he mentioned one time about having the control to at least clean the dishes, wash the dishes.
Mm,
You don't have to do something huge. Just know that there's something needs to be done, and if it's as little as cleaning the dishes, that's the first step towards moving on to something else.
he's right. He's right.
So yeah, you don't have to take the big monumental step. I'm going to climb Mount Everest right
Mhm.
now. Just climb the next step in life to
And that
make you
can,
and make
yeah,
yourself feel better. And it could lead to Mount Everest, whatever that Mount Everest is.
exactly. Everyone's Everest is different, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes cleaning out your car is your Everest. I know a guy who was so depressed his car was so dirty, and I told him, "Well, we don't have to clean your whole car right now, but how about every time you get out of it, you grab one piece of trash. Just every time you get out of it. That's all you got to do, and toss that, and just
Yeah,
that for him. There was just this strange mental block, and for him, that was a real big deal. Finally getting that car clean, yeah, and then you move on to the next thing.
that's right. So yeah, it's amazing in life what stumps us up sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
So it's a good thing that we're all different. So we all have
Yeah,
our own little challenges. And I told someone one thing about this podcast. I wouldn't belittle anybody's challenge in life or adversity. Okay. Here's the example I would give. Say, Zach, you get up in the middle of the night to go drink your water so you can get refreshed and everything. And on the way over to the bathroom, you kick the door jam and stump your toe. And for the most part, what happened to you? You probably lost an hour's sleep because your toe was throbbing. But what if you were one of them person that had a brittle bone disease and now you've shattered that bone? Or what if you're a hemophiliac, and that's what Max was dealing with, was hemophiliac, and so now you're bleeding internally. Or what if you're one of them that's a very rare disease, is progeria? Someone who looks like they're 8 years old, but they look like they're 80
hmm,
and causes more trouble. So I don't belittle anybody that wants to share their story.
yeah,
If it's that monumental to them, then I have no problem letting them share and giving them this platform to get out there.
yeah. That's great. Yeah,
So,
I
all
think we
right.
all we all need to be more understanding like that.
So, and well, I appreciate it. If you can give people just three small, quick advice on what would be like a first step. I know you put everything in a bag here earlier, but if you can come by and just summarize maybe three quick steps to get them a start, that'd be good.
Um, create that intention. Create that intention of just writing things down. It sounds silly, but create the intention of moving your steps forward. It's going to organize your thoughts. Even just creating that list, that's your first win. Okay. Of course, like we said before, dial in your diet just that little bit more. And then the next week, maybe just a little bit more. The way I work is I tend to do things in weekly increments. So I tell people, okay, this week we're just going to try cutting out the soda. This week we're just going to try cutting out the French fries. Something like that. So dial that in. Also, I'm a big fan. Talk to your primary care doctor, get those blood tests, and see if things are out of the whack. Maybe your vitamin B levels are out. Maybe you have inflammation, and it's particular to the individual, but getting on the right supplemental routine can be a big difference. So even just sorting just that out and getting on the right, feeding that courage wolf, right? The opposite of watching the news, or feeding that courage wolf, we're getting in the right direction.
And I appreciate you saying the last one about the being with your physician. I've had two other ladies on. Sorry, ladies, I don't know your name, but they were physical fitness type experts and everything. And the main thing they said, and this is very agreeable, is know your body better than your doctor does.
I love that.
Yep. So know your body better than your doctor does. That way, if you can help with the doctor along with him, not just follow his lead.
Yeah, yeah, that's great.
So awesome. So from there. All right. Zach, again, author of, let's get that book up one more time for the people coming in, watching later on. It is the official depression relief book, Real Life Strategies from a Guy Who Has Lived It. Zach, go ahead and tell us your social media and how we can find you, how we can get hold of this book, and
Sure.
anything we can do to maybe get some consultation from you or something.
Sure, yeah. So the best way to pick up the book is just on Amazon, the official depression relief playbook. And I'll do you one better. I'll give out my email. So it's just zacksrutledge@gmail.com. And I'll spell that for you. It's ZACKSRUTLEDGE@gmail.com. And if anybody wants a free chapter from the book, shoot me an email and I'll be more than happy to send them a chapter, see if it's their cup of tea or not.
All right, awesome, man. I'll definitely put these in the link for people there to come back and listen, and they can just click on it to find you and go find your book easier as well.
That's
So,
great.
hey, Zach, I appreciate you being here, man. You provided a lot of information, a lot of inspiration, and there's got to be hope somewhere found in there for somebody. So, last thing I want to ask you, Zach, you know as well as I do, there's people struggling today. Something's going on. If you can give them a positive message to get through today, man, that would be a blessing.
Sure. I'm going to urge people practice forgiveness. This goes both ways. You're going to practice forgiveness with yourself, and you're going to practice forgiveness with other people. Practicing forgiveness with yourself. Some things we do are being are not necessarily out of our control, but because of certain beliefs that we've been conditioned to believe, or because of certain chemistries in our brain, or whatever it is, we're being pushed in a certain direction. So if we make some bad decisions, which we all do, forgive yourself, right? It's a new day. And like we were saying a little earlier, you wouldn't be as hard on yourself or as hard on other people as you are on yourself. I get so many people, my clients who I'm training, they're so hard on themselves. It's like, guys, you're being a bully. And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, you're being a bully to you. You're a person too. Stop being a bully. So practice forgiveness with yourself. Also practice forgiveness with other people. Just like they said to the professor, like people said to me, people are going to say dumb things, but they don't understand because they can't understand. So practice that forgiveness, because it's not your weight to carry around. Once you forgive them, that little bit of weight's going to fall off your shoulders. That's another little building block you're going to have right there. Practice forgiveness. That's my big theme right now this week.
Awesome. Practice forgiveness. And I'm like you. Anybody goes to my website, to go to professorofperseverance.com. I have a mini series, mini course down below, and a ebook. And chapter one and part of the mini series is the forgiveness. And I mentioned it, like you said, both ways. A lot of people are taught to forgive the people that have hurt us, or who
Mhm.
we betrayed have hurt us. But again, we've got to forgive ourselves for the mistakes we made.
Yeah.
These people that are living back 50 years ago, I did, and now I can't. No, no, no. Forgive yourself and let's go. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you bringing that up. And I really love what you just said about the bullying. You're bullying yourself. I've
Yeah.
never looked at it that way. I've always say, we're belittling ourselves, we're talking down to ourselves. No, you're right. We are bullies to ourselves. I love the way you brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody else. Hey, if thank you for coming in and on the replay. Be sure to share this out. Someone who needs some hope, some help, and inspiration. Again, you don't have to be going through a depression or your spinal cord injury, but the message is still the same, providing to help someone get to the next level in life. So, hey, and Nancy, thank you for coming in, you Jersey girl, and everyone else. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.